doing is we have been talking about the CI/CD tool, which is Jenkins, and this is one of the, I could say, important tool in our journey of the DevOps learning, because wherever you go, wherever the DevOps position is there, they should use some of the CI/CD tool. That could be Jenkins or GitLab, or GitLab pipelines or Bitbucket pipelines or GitHub Actions. Any of these things you would be using. But let's understand where this tool fits into this. Okay, I hope you remembered. You remembered about our DevOps pipeline, right? Pipeline in the sense there are multiple phases like requirement gathering, the requirements, design, design part, and then clone the GitHub repository, build it, test it, compile it, test it, automate it, package it, publish it. These are multiple phases that will be involved. But before these are the phases that is only into the CI/CD pipeline. But let's understand that the whole view of just give me. Okay, see here. First, let me show you the phase on here. This is the overview of it. Okay. So okay, see here. This is a DevOps pipeline. I hope we have talked it in our demo classes. Like planning, writing a code, building it, testing it, releasing it, deployment, you know, operations and monitor will come into the same phase. So these are the some of the phases which involved in the in our DevOps pipeline. Now what we are talking about is we just learned about the coding part. We have used one of the SCM tool such as GitHub, and then learn how to use that for the code management purpose, which is related to the source code management. Okay, now what we are talking about is we are talking this phase is nothing but a CI and CD here. Okay, which means a continuous integration and continuous delivery, which means if now take this part and see here what this guy is doing here. Okay, so this particular CI CD contains these many phases, like whenever some commits happen, meaning let's talk about this guy. First of all, right, why first of all, what is a continuous integration? Then we'll talk about why this is required. A continuous integration means generally whenever in a daily life. Now I'm talking about before or without CI/CD tool in the place. So what does it mean is, whenever they want to test any changes, or whenever they want to do a small change in the code base, what they have to do is they have to write a code, meaning update the code and then compile it. After compiling it, compiling it again, after testing it, after approving the test cases, again after making the packages, then they will be deploying the changes. To do this all, for doing of all these stages, at least 2 to 3 days will be required in order to deploy small change. For example, take an example of google.com or facebook.com. If they want to change a logo or one particular line in a particular web page, they have to do all this process, which is taking like a almost a minimum of 1 day, maximum of 2 days. Okay, because that's the all things are the manual process they require to do that. But in case of when they introduce this one, right? For example, I mean, in a developer life, right? What they do, they have to do a lot of changes, even because let's say, for example, if they started writing a program and even for a small mistake, they have to recompile it again. For small change also, they have to recompile it and deploy it. And there is a huge in a day of developer journey, right? They have to commit, deploy, test changes almost a minimum of 10 times he has to do that. Okay, that is how he is required. And to do those 10 times, it would take a lot of times. Okay, in 1 day it can't be delivered anything, because this much time is taking for these many changes. But in case of Jenkins, right? Jenkins or any of the CI/CD tool, how it has been resolving is, you just commit your change and remaining will be taken care of this CI/CD tool. For example, Jenkins will be taking care of remaining part. What are the remaining part? Okay, take the source code, compile it, build it, test it, deploy it, and then intimate you. This is what has happened. I'm done with that. Even for small change also, it is taking less time without any delay also. So this is what is happening with the Jenkins or CI/CD tool. This is a very automated, meaning continuously integrate your changes to existing system. That is called continuous integration. Okay, this is called a continuous integration. It's continuously integrate, meaning whenever you do commit, automatically it will take your latest code, compile it, build it, package it, test it. Test it, then package it, and then deploy it. These many changes or these many phases is being auto completed by this Jenkins server. This is called continuously integrate whenever you have done something. Okay. At the same time, in the same phase, whenever you deploy, right? Whenever you deploy, okay, at all the times, meaning from starting this to this point, everything is going to be automated. Okay. So for example, you have done some commits in a GitHub. Automatically, there is a Jenkins job which will be triggered, which will keep on listening of some of your events of GitHub. Oh, hey, one commit is happening on a GitHub event. Let me trigger Jenkins job here. So what does it do is, it will just commit it. It will just clone it, build it, and compile it, test it, package it, and then deploy it, automatically deploying it. But this is called continuous integration. In this continuous integration, if you continue this till the deployment, this is also called a continuous delivery, meaning all the deploying it all the time. Even we can stop it here itself. Instead of deploying your package after when commit is happened, you can continue with this, but this is called a continuous integration and delivery. Why? Because delivery we are talking, it will always be deployed at any time. At any time means whenever some commits happen or whenever this job triggers. But if you restricting the deployment, right, this is called, hello, am I audible, guys? Because
Yes.
okay, cool. Okay, right, sure. Okay, this, now we are talking about the deployment part also, continuous deployment also. Continuous deployment in the sense, whenever we want, meaning we are restricting the deployment. For example, for each and every single commit, we won't deploy the changes into the production. Okay, so at that time, it is not a continuous delivery, it is a continuous deployment, meaning, okay, only a release branch changes has to be deployed in the production, not for every single commit. So then this is a continuous deployment, not the continuous delivery. I hope you understand what I'm saying. See, for example, if you commit something on a GitHub, your Jenkins pipelines will trigger that. Jenkins pipeline, what does it do is, it will just compile all the phases and then deploying into one environment. This is a continuous integration and continuous delivery. But when it comes to the continuous deployment, the deployment won't happen at any time. It will happen only on the requirement base, meaning you would be triggering manually, then only it will be deployed into a production environment. For example, you would use the continuous deployment only for the production releases, not for dev or testing releases. Of course, you can use it, but we can't use it because that is not the definition of the continuous deployment. Okay, I hope you understand what I'm talking about. Okay, now what we need is, let's install the Jenkins here. Okay, and then again we'll come back what are the different things and a lot of this thing. But meanwhile, what we'll do is make sure you have Java has been installed, and then adding some of the packages. I think DigitalOcean has the best option to follow to install the Jenkins. Here we are just we are just adding some of the packages here. Okay, I'm logging into the remote machine. You can also log into the remote machine. Okay, here. So this is, I have just added it. And then this is another key. I need to add it. What these keys are, this is basically you are telling to your local repository about where the Jenkins related information. That is what you are simply doing it here. Okay, by adding some of the repository things here. Now let me update here. And then let's see. What does it happen? Okay, fine. Let me install the Jenkins here and automatically getting installed. There are two ways of Jenkins installation. One is by using a apt package manager, and another one is download the jar file, and not jar, var file of a Jenkins. This is one way of installing it here. Okay, now I have installed via apt package manager. Now let's see the Jenkins homepage. Okay, Jenkins onboarding. Here you can find under the, this is a Jenkins. This is the Jenkins documentation page. Under the documentation, you would find here, this is called the Jenkins installation, how to install the Jenkins. You can install the Jenkins in different environments. For example, you can use a Docker. The Docker itself has pre-installed with the Jenkins. You can just directly run the Docker container. So you can use directly the Jenkins. Another one is, if you want to deploy, if you want a Jenkins which has to be deployed in the Kubernetes, these are the instruction how to do that, which they are basically creating a separate namespace and then creating a kind of a service deployment type, and that will automatically get pulled up automatically here. Okay, so this is one way of deploying the Jenkins in the Kubernetes. But if you are using Linux, for the Jenkins installation, these are the requirements. They have given us steps like for the Debian based, how to do that, for the Fedora, how to do that, for the Mac OS. Where is this? Yeah, for the different installation. For the different Linux distributions, what are the steps they need to follow? This is what they have given. Basically, if you compile whatever is this, just simply install the Java, which is a JDK 17 as a base version, and then you can install the Jenkins also. Okay, here if you see here, Jenkins will do a release on weekly basis and monthly basis also. In the monthly basis, they would be not like monthly basis, every 12 weeks it seems. Okay, what does it mean? LTS means long-term support release. For example, what the main purpose of LTS is? LTS will have a stable build, meaning it will work seamlessly without any issue, and it won't be having any bugs also. That is called long-term support. And weekly releases, it may not be guaranteed like LTS, meaning it may have a new features, it may have a some bugs, it may have some patches works also. So like that, weekly releases will have. What they do is, first they do weekly releases, and then they try to stabilize it of everything in that particular 12 weeks of time. Once in 12 weeks of time, whatever they have released as a weekly, they try to make it as a stabilized and release with the major version, with by attaching the LTS, meaning, for example, the latest version is 20, I mean 2.26 dot something else, for example, LTS version. This version of build has a no issues, everything is working fine and good. That is what they would be giving you. Now we are using the long-term LTS mode also here. Okay. And I mean, basically simple steps. Make sure you have Java installed, because Jenkins has built on top of using Java. Okay. And this is one thing. 1 minute. Okay, my Jenkins has been installed here now. Okay, let me open it here. Let me check systemctl status Jenkins. This is the command to start my Jenkins. Okay. I mean, check the status also. Here, if you see here, whenever you, the best thing is, if you install the Jenkins with the apt package manager, this is the advantage. I mean, advantage means one system service will be get created. But if you install as a jar, right, it won't create a system service. What is a system service? So basically you can use, for example, here, this is a system service, meaning whenever the system got down or rebooted, or if you want to stop it or start it, right, you just use the systemctl command in order to do a different operations on this Jenkins services. This is one of the advantage if we install any of the software with this apt package manager. If you install the Jenkins via, it's not like install, I can say, it is extracting the jar or var file, right? If you use a jar or var file to install or to extract a Jenkins, you won't get the system service. What you need to do is you have to manually find out what is the service name, which port it is running, and everything here. Okay, internally even system service also executing this one. That's it. Even if you download a var file, exactly this is the one. If you download a var file, if you give this command along with the Java headless true and the jar var file, and then this is the directory and these are the port numbers. If you give, okay, see here, you just need to pass also. Even if you download this var and execute this particular command, Jenkins will be up and running. Okay, let's check Jenkins here, whether it has been running 19.168.104. Okay, yeah, this is a first of all onboarding page of the Jenkins. Okay, initially this is the place where it will have a password out of it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just printing this password and then to continue this one. Okay, this is the initial set of password and then I'm using it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is there are suggested plugins. See, the version that we install is a 2.401.3. Okay, and let me select the plugins. So these many plugins. Okay, these are all, see, one thing guys, the entire Jenkins is works based on the plugins. Okay, if you want to work with GitHub from a Jenkins, you have to install a GitHub related plugins. If you want to work with LDAP or OAuth or any authentication system, you have to install a respective OAuth or LDAP library plugins into the Jenkins system. So everything like that. If you want to work with the Docker, with the Jenkins, you have to install the Docker related plugins. So Jenkins is mainly based on the plugins based or plugins ecosystem. It is completely depending on the plugins only. It is by the way, Jenkins is open source. Most of the plugins are open source, not commercialized, but there are some commercialized tools. I mean, commercialized libraries also, plugins also, we can be using it here. So what I do is, I'll just I'll just go with the suggested plugins. These are the plugins that is already is going to install. Okay, this is way how it is going to install here. Now let's talk about something called. I hope is it clear, guys? Before moving forward, I want to understand whatever the steps that we followed for installing the Jenkins. Is it clear or not? What I want to understand or what we want to discuss now is what are the different CI/CD tools. We just stick with the Jenkins, right? In the world, there are some other Jenkins tools also. I mean, Jenkins, sorry, CI/CD tools also available. For example, GitLab pipeline, CI/CD. I mean, Bitbucket pipeline, GitHub Actions. These are the similar ones here. Let me talk. Let me take about here. Jenkins. Bitbucket pipeline, GitLab or GitHub. Okay, some of the things why I'm categorizing this and this is there are some similarities between these three guys, and there is a somewhat a difference between other three guys also. Okay, clear. Can you please tell me what is meant by a plugin was? Okay, plugins is nothing but a helper function to existing tool, meaning right, you have a bike, and if you want to repair, you should have some kind of a toolkit, right? With the help of toolkit, you can do a small repair, right? Similarly, if software, if the Jenkins tool want to work with GitHub, you have to make sure GitHub plugin has to be installed. So then only you could able to give you. What if you don't have a plugin? What you need to do is you have to write your own code in order to communicate with the GitHub. Simply what you can, I mean, it's like you are using existing one which is written by someone in order to complete your task. Okay, if you don't have a plugin with the GitHub to connect to GitHub from a Jenkins, you have to start writing a code and saying that either in Java or Ruby Rails or Jenkins pipeline thing. And then it will be end up with instead of focusing on your main task, you would be focusing on the utility tools which you don't have to work it because it's already available. Simply a plugin is a piece of tool or a function which will work for you for completing a task. This is a layman terminology, but simply it's like I think you might have heard about extensions. For example, if you want to even like in your mobile, for everything you have to install an application, right? Android app. With the app only you are communicating with any of the, so for example, net banking or some other tool. First you are installing an app and then communicating it. Without installing that app or without using that app, you can't able to communicate it. Similarly, in the Jenkins, if you want to communicate with the GitHub from a Jenkins, you have to install the GitHub plugin. This is just I'm taking as an example. Okay, I hope it's clear. Okay, right. Thank you. And now what I want to talk about is, as I mentioned here, GitHub is mainly focused on the plugins based systems. Okay, there are a lot of topics. I mean, there are a lot of things here. Okay. What's this? This is Jenkins. Basically, what exactly major difference here is that this is a there is a one aspect called integration. Um, integration based system, meaning if you take a Jenkins for the integration aspect, what you need to do is you have to integrate with the source code management tool with the Jenkins. Okay, but in case of integration with these guys, it doesn't require any specific integration, because Bitbucket is a source code management tool, GitLab is a source code management tool, GitHub is a source code management tool. You don't need to integrate if you are using the GitHub or any of the things for the CI/CD purpose. But if you want to use a Jenkins for the CI/CD purpose, you have to integrate this. This is one of the things here. Okay, and one more thing is this Jenkins guy, right? This is completely integration will happen with the plugins. Okay, this is the plugins here. And but in case of Bitbucket pipeline, right? Bitbucket pipeline, you don't need to require any of the plugins or anything. So you can directly write some of the things and then work on Bitbucket or GitLab or GitHub Actions here. Okay, meaning it is pre-install of all these integrations available with the Jenkins. I mean, available with the Bitbucket and GitLab here. Okay. Instead of putting like this, let me put this way. Jenkins, and there is another side which contains all, like Jenkins. This is Jenkins, and these are the GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. Okay, right? So these are the some of the. Okay, now I'm talking about the integration part of it, right? For integration of what? With the source code management tool. From whom? Jenkins. If you want to integrate the Jenkins with any of the source code tools, Jenkins required a lot plugins. Okay, but in case of a plugin, if in case of a GitLab or Bitbucket or anything, you don't need to require any plugins at all. Okay, because it is pre-built, it is tightly integrated with existing solution only, so it doesn't require. Okay, and one more thing is, if you use the Jenkins, right, what will happening is it is easy to use. And one more thing is, because it is all the configuration you have to do and maintenance you have to do here. But in case of the Bitbucket pipeline, right, you don't need to do any configuration. It's you just directly you directly use the Bitbucket for the I mean, let me tell you an example. For example, if you are using a Jenkins, what you need to do is you have to install separate server and then download the jar or var or apt package manager of Jenkins, install it, that's it, and then you start writing your pipeline. But in case of Bitbucket or GitLab, other CI/CD tool, you just start writing it. So the maintenance and in configuration will be avoided in case of Bitbucket and GitLab and Bitbucket, because these already contain, meaning the work of installation configuration has already been done on the GitLab and Bitbucket. But in case of Jenkins, you have to do it yourself. Why? Because GitLab, Bitbucket, these are the SaaS based products. And of course, GitLab, Bitbucket has also have a on-premise services also. Meaning, for example, there are two things here, meaning on-premise and I hope you know what is on-premise, but just in case if you don't know what is on-premise and SaaS based. Okay, meaning um, SaaS based products are like Google we are using. For example, this webwhiteboard.com is a SaaS product. It is a webified application. Everyone can access. Okay, you don't need to install. If you want to use a webwhiteboard.com, what you need to do is just open a browser and access this website. That's it. What if I tell you first you have to install 2 3 software tools in your laptop and then you need to access this web whiteboard and something, right? That is called on-premise version. Jenkins is a on-premise version, meaning or self-hosted. Sometimes we'll call it as a self-hosted or on-premise or within data center. These are the some of the terminologies you would be using when we are talking about the environments or the applications that you want to deploy it here. Okay, Jenkins is a self-hosted based, not a SaaS based product. Meaning they will give you the jar, you run it. That's it. You don't need to. I mean, you have to require everything in order to run that particular software. But in case of a GitLab or other things, you just have to maintain of it. This is one thing, easy of use. These guys are somewhat good at of doing things. And another one is which is basically, you have to write a configuration that is either you to do manual and code based also, which is like you might have heard about infrastructure as a code, right? Here also configuration as a code here. This you would be writing it here. What does it mean by is, what you need to do is when you use a configuration, everything you would be doing with the, in case of a Jenkins, you would be doing a configuration with the UI or by writing a script. That script can be Groovy or Ruby on Rails also. That every configuration that you would be doing it. Okay, but in case of Bitbucket pipelines or GitHub, what you would be doing is you would be writing a YAML files. That is that YAML files. In case of a Bitbucket, I mean, you would write your script in a YAML based, either GitHub, either Bitbucket or GitLab or Bitbucket. And one more thing is, if it is a Bitbucket, there is a something called pipelines. There is a separate spice. Here in the Jenkins, what we do is we will be writing a jobs. You might have heard about a freestyle job, multi-pipeline branch, a project pipeline branch. These are the jobs you would be calling in a Jenkins. In the YAML, I mean in the other CI/CD tools like these Bitbucket and GitLab, you would writing a you would call a terminology like a pipeline in the Bitbucket. Again, it is another YAML. Here you will write as a GitLab ci.yaml. This is in the GitLab. Okay, this is also there in the GitHub. You would be writing a, I think, actions. You would be writing an actions. Okay, this is the configuration as a code. If we talk between the Jenkins and other tools be GitLab and Bitbucket. Okay, and the next thing is which I want to focus is on about, how easy to, if we want to use for everything. Meaning, for example, right, if we want to integrate with any other software, right, as I mentioned earlier, there is a plugins installations if it is a Jenkins. But in case of Bitbucket or GitLab, what they do is they do not have a plugins system also at all. Meaning everything is a pre-built. Meaning whatever they have, right, For example, Jenkins has a huge base of plugin system, almost 10,000 of plugins are available. But in case of a Bitbucket, you don't need to install the plugins. Most of the functionalities we already implemented, you don't need to install, but it won't cover as much as possible. Meaning, what I want to give you is, I want to give a good ranking in terms of a plugins which has by the Jenkins. But in case of why? Because remaining CI/CD plugins does not have a much support for other functionalities when compared with the Jenkins, because the Jenkins plugins ecosystem is very high also here. Okay. And again, another aspect which I want to talk about is security and access control. Okay. When it comes to the access security and access control, GitHub is the, there is an interview question in the Jenkins also related to how do you manage your users and provide an access and all here. Okay. So Jenkins, which is basically required, again, plugins related to the RBAC or some of the matrix. When there is a matrix where you can provide a read, write, execute, and then user based and everything. Okay, this is everything you would be writing by installing the plugin in the Jenkins. But in case of a pipeline, right, what does it do? GitLab or Bitbucket, right? Internally, it will use the same thing. For example, when you are signing up the GitLab or Bitbucket, it will ask you your username and password, right? It will use those as for managing and access control of same credentials. You don't require a specific thing. But in case of a Jenkins, what you need to do is you install a plugin, you have to configure some access matrix, then you use it. But in case of other tools, you don't, it will use the existing one only. Okay, it will use the internal tools. And another thing is usage based. Usage based means whether it is open source or commercial, or what does it mean? Mostly Jenkins is open source, and remaining Bitbucket pipelines, GitLab CI/CD, it is a paid one, but there is a free version also. For example, 2000 minutes is a free for the GitLab users. Meaning, what is 2000 minutes here? When you write, if you write some pipeline, if it is running for 11 minutes, it will count, it will run your that particular, it will keep on, it will allow you to run that pipeline until 2000 minutes is completed. So like that, they will give you, they will give you the free versions of it up to some minutes here. That's why the people will always been focusing on optimizing the existing pipeline. They won't take a risk of writing a pipeline which will run for almost 1 hour or 40 minutes like that. So they want to write a simple pipeline. It should take a less time. That's why this is one of the feature if you want to adapt it here. Okay. And I guess what else I want to tell you is, yeah, another thing is, after telling the usage and plugins, since Jenkins is a plugins based ecosystem, plugins dependency, each plugin is not an updated. Some of the plugins will have a vulnerabilities. Even Jenkins itself will tell you, hey dude, this plugin which you install will have some of the vulnerabilities. Either you fix it or don't use it. That's what they would be suggesting. Jenkins would be suggest you. Okay. Okay, let me complete and then come back here. Otherwise, I may forget about it. Another one is support in case of a Jenkins and other CI/CD tools. Jenkins has a huge user base systems, meaning since it is an open source, right, the support for these guys are very high. You would easily get an answers if you've stuck in anyone, either for most of the from the community based one. But in case of a Bitbucket or GitLab, first what you need to do is you have to create a ticket, support ticket, and then wait for the response and then do. Of course, whatever the supports, whatever the tickets that they have, right? Those are the publicly available also. But if you don't able to solve, you have to raise it and then get it solved. This is how you need to get a support from the support for the other CI/CD tools other than Jenkins. Okay. And one more thing is some of the here in the Jenkins, we'll call it as a pipelines. Okay. But in case of GitLab or Bitbucket, we'll call it as a workflows. Okay. And if you want to write any pipeline related to the Docker, again, you have to install the Docker plugins and then manage of all the stuff. Okay. But in case of here, other pipelines, you have to create a workflows. That workflow will you would be mentioning what are the tools that you want and then write it. Okay. So this is how you would be managing or compare when you compare with the other CI/CD tools versus Jenkins. Why we are majorly learning focusing on is the boom of, I mean, the Jenkins was been there for a long time than other tools, because most of the people, whoever is working now, and most of the companies would already been adapted the Jenkins. So that's why the requirement is also very high. And even if you understand the Jenkins, even if you switch to another tool, the concepts will be the same thing. Okay, the pipeline, this many has phases, and each phase each phase will have a different many steps and something like that. You don't need to, I mean, if you, I mean, for example, you join a company and you are the background of the Jenkins, you know how to deal with that Jenkins, but you join a company which they do not using, I mean, they have migrated from Jenkins to GitLab. Even if you go to that, you won't be wandering it out. Only the thing is you will have a less work. You just need to write a pipeline than focusing on all the configuration management and all. But people would, even if you see any of the DevOps job, you would find a DevOps job description, you would find a Jenkins or CI/CD pipeline or creating a pipeline. You would be seeing these kind of a terminologies here. Okay. So any questions, guys? Are you clear, or any questions? Please let me know if you have any question. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create my username. Yeah, you can post the questions if you do have. Okay. Okay. And then this one. Okay, this is one thing. Instance configuration, start using a Jenkins. Okay, this we have just onboarded the Jenkins part here. Okay, in this Jenkins part, this is a dashboard out of it. Okay, the entire world is in this only under the manage Jenkins here. Okay, we have to walk through each and every phase, especially we have to talk about plugins, nodes, credentials, security, users, system information, and system logs. Especially, when you connect your Jenkins with any of the external systems, right? You have to find out if you faced any issues like these two services are not able to communicate, or my Jenkins job is not getting triggered from GitLab or GitHub as a webhooks. You need to come to the system logs and then record those logs and then watch these logs. This is how you debugging how the things are working here. Okay, I want all. I don't want any of the info warning. I just want all here. So see, I can see each and every information about Jenkins, like info, warning, error, all kinds of information I'm getting seen. So this would be handy when you are debugging from debugging some of the Jenkins triggering events here under the system logs. Okay, this If you're facing some issue like you are triggering Jenkins job from GitHub, if you are facing some kind of an issues in that such kind of a task, here is the savior. Meaning you just go to the system logs, you create a one log recorder before triggering something, and then open it and then see what is happening here. So this is how you would be doing all of your logs and all. We'll go through each one when we face the issue, right? We'll see that how to use it. Another one is especially the users, right? Here, this is the way you would be using it. Earlier, the interface of creating user would be different, what do you say? There is a matrix will be available. Let me show you here. Jenkins user matrix. Yeah, you have to install that plugin, then UI will be get changed basically. Yeah, this is how we would be doing. Why? See, these are the user guys, admin Mohit Goyal and some other guy. Do they have overall access? Yes. Tick, 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 tick. Administrator access? Yes. Configuring a uploader update center? Yes. But other two guys does not have other two permissions. Like, what about the agent related of these two users? What are the jobs? Are these guys able to do build the job, cancel the job, configure the job, create a job, discover the job, read the job, can able to access the workspace? Yes or no? Something like that. This is called the matrix here. So this is another interview based question. How do you provide an access to for job level access to a particular user in the Jenkins? You have to talk about this metrics. I mean, not metrics, matrix based access. And then you have to explain how many things are there. How do you uncheck it? I mean, of course, when you explain this matrix, they will easily understand. You know about this access level information. This will get when we install one of the plugins, matrix related information. Okay. And then, yeah, this is another important. If time permits, right, what we do is we will try to set up a master slave Jenkins here, even though we do not have in our things, but we will still see this because in the latest, as I mentioned earlier, I guess in one of the JDs, not like one of the JDs, most of the JDs, wherever the Kubernetes or Docker is mentioning, they are asking about a Jenkins master and slave architecture also, meaning they want to set up Jenkins master and slave also here. That's why we time permits, most of the time permits, we will be configuring that also. Yeah, this is it, guys. Tomorrow, what we do is we will be go with the some of the administrator commands of the Jenkins, and then we will start with the creating a pipelines of these many types: freestyle pipeline, multi-configuration project, folder, and everything. Okay. Any questions, guys? Yeah. What is meant by a logger? Okay, nice thing. Logger means, uh, right? When you, for example, when you are writing or developing an application, right? Or if you are writing a script, the script will do its own job. But as a user, what the script is doing, right? For example, here, when I install this tool right here, sudo apt-get install Jenkins. These are the logging information. Okay, right? Whenever it is installing this Jenkins, it is logging some of the information. This information is generated by the apt manager. Okay, what it is saying, okay, I'm preparing to unpack. First, initially, what it is doing is, it is saying, I have to install some of the libraries, which is a cost of 98.5 MB of space. It will be utilized. And it is saying, okay, I'm fine with that. And now it is saying, okay, I downloaded, I'm extracting this Jenkins.deb file. And I'm updating the Jenkins. I'm setting up the Jenkins credentials. I'm creating a symbolic link of this user under this path. And I'm scanning the process. I'm scanning all the Linux images. And I'm looking for some kernel updates. No services required to be restarted. it will keep on tell you what this guy is doing. If some issue is there, right, you would find some error here, right? These are all logger information. These logs will have a different things: information logs, warning logs, error logs, message logs. These are the different levels of a logs that you need to configure. If you see here, manage Jenkins here, when you do syslogs here, you would find a different things, configurations. See, this log I'm configured as a all logs. All logs means every logs. Okay, either find messages, configure related messages, info related messages, warning related messages, error related messages, everything will be logged here because I have configured saying that all logs, print all logs. So that's what it is doing. If I configure info, you would be getting only info related logs alone. Log is not a piece of information which will tell you what is happening. You would be including. The best practice is when we are developing a software, you have to write a logs. You have to, because then only it will be helpful when you are trying to debug. That is the main purpose of the logs of adding it. I hope it's understandable. Naveen, please let me know if you're still confused. Okay, thank you. Any questions, guys? I think this is it from my side, and tomorrow we'll meet again as usual 7:30, and then we will talk. We'll continue from there onwards, especially creating a jobs and some of the administration related commands. Okay.